the estimates are tabled for the PAAC to meet. But even outside of that, Mr. Chairman, and the full report could not be made available for tabling. These things don't just come in one big blob. They're going through draft stages. And what I know from in the past, even with legislation, and you want to expedite it in the Parliament, the members are given a draft copy pending that they can become familiar. Our consultant, if was provided with a draft copy a day or two before, knowing that there might be changes, the little changes that would be made between a draft and the actual one would be minimal and would not change the overall scheme of things. So I believe it's a bit of discourtesy to the committee. You know, we want to cooperate, and we always try to cooperate with the minister in getting these things to follow, but the cooperation must be reciprocal. So, you know, I would say in the past, you know, going forward, we have to make up our mind if we're going to continue with this order or not. Because it's something that can be fixed. It's not impossible.
Thank you, Member Jackson. Members, we have apologies. Well, we have online Member Sibley's and Member Tamika Davis. Members, I will take the minutes of last meeting. We asked to defer the minutes of the committee meeting held on July 31st, 2024. Can I take it that it has been read and confirmation of those minutes? Moved by Member Jackson and seconded by Member Clark. Thank you. Members, we are here to consider the first supplementary estimates of expenditure for the financial year 2024-25 and the public body's first supplementary estimates of revenue and expenditure for the financial year 24-25. Let me welcome Ms. Darlene Morrison and the team from the Ministry of Finance. As usual, Ms. Morrison, you can make your opening remarks, and then we will have the committee members ask follow-up questions as they see fit. Welcome.
Sir, good morning. With me this morning is Deputy Financial Secretary Loris Jarrett from the Public Expenditure Division, Deputy Financial Secretary Dan Black, Economic Management Division, Mr. Trevor Anderson, Principal Director, Economic Management Division, Mr. Seymour Davey with the Public Expenditure Division, Projects Branch, Mrs. Dean Scott from the Economic Management Division, and Ms. Alicia Bish, Deputy Financial Secretary, Public Enterprises Division. All right, so the central government's first supplementary estimates 2024-25, the public body's first supplementary estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year ending March 2025, and the fiscal policy paper, fiscal year 2024-25 interim report, were tabled in Parliament on October 7, 2024, incorporating the impact of a number of factors on the economy and the fiscal operations of the country, as well as the government's response to those impacts. Among the factors influencing changes to the budgeted programs is the impact of Hurricane Beryl on the country, which necessitated a recovery response through the fiscal operations. Hurricane Beryl's impact has generated an adjustment in expected macroeconomic indicator profile for the country during the current fiscal year, as well as across the medium term. The indicator most significantly affected is the real gross domestic product, which is currently estimated to contract by 0.2% this fiscal year. This represents a 2 percentage point deviation from the prior forecast of a 1.8% expansion. This significant shock to the growth profile is accompanied by an estimated decline in the inflation rate from the originally estimated 5.8% to 4.5%. Interest rate and exchange rate profiles utilized during preparation of the budgets are also being adjusted in line with the developments to date. On the central government's first supplementary estimates, to facilitate recovery from Hurricane Beryl while incorporating the altered macroeconomic profile, the central government's first supplementary estimates provides for an increase in total expenditure and payments by $40.7 billion, accompanied by additional financing of $44.6 billion. Adjustments to the expenditure profile include an increase of $52.5 billion in recurrent expenditure, it's above the line expenditure, a decrease of $12.1 billion in capital expenditure, and an increase of $0.4 billion in amortization, which is below the line. The recurrent expenditure increase is comprised of an increase of $31.3 billion in recurring programs, an increase of $11.6 billion in wages and salaries, and an increase of $9.6 billion in interest payments. Contributing to the increase in recurring programs are $11.8 billion directly related to the Hurricane Beryl recovery efforts, $12.6 billion in increased subventions to public bodies and regional institutions, including self-financing public bodies, $2.5 billion to the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation for the SPARK program, and special capital programs to support the pre-investment activities, which include acquisition of pipelines and fittings, design, and other preparatory activities required for the SPARK program and the special capital expenditure projects being implemented by the National Works Agency. Among the public bodies / regional institutions allocated additional subventions are the University of the West Indies, which is the reference regional institution, the University of Technology, Jamaica Urban Transit Company, Montego Bay Metro Limited, National Water Commission, University Hospital of the West Indies, Transport Authority, Jamaica Agricultural Commodities Regulatory Authority, Jamaica Racing Commission, Jamaica Ultimate Tire Company, Firearm Licensing Authority, National Solid Waste Management Authority, and other agencies under the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development. The municipal corporations are also being allocated additional subvention amounts. The increase in wages and salaries reflects a higher than estimated cost for the third-year implementation of public sector compensation restructure, and this includes a $5.1 billion for police overtime expenses. Interest payments are reflecting the impact of both interest rate and exchange rate adjustments. The net reduction of $12.1 billion on the capital expenditure side represents a cut in the $24.5 billion contingency allocation under capital. This was necessary to provide some of the room on the recurrent side to facilitate the Hurricane Beryl recovery efforts, as well as SPARK preparatory program requirements, which are captured under recurring programs. Financing of the additional $40.7 billion in expenditure is primarily from additional non-tax revenue flows, which include higher than anticipated amounts arising from securitization of the Norman Manley International Airport revenue flows, which are due to the government, flows from the CCRIF disbursements associated with Hurricane Beryl, and Bank of Jamaica distributions. Utilization of cash resources will also provide financing for the additional expenditure. With respect to the public bodies for supplementary estimates, adjustment to the public bodies estimates primarily arise from the need for additional subventions from the central government to a number of public bodies. The self-financing public bodies requiring support of the central government are the National Water Commission for $1.5 billion, Jamaica Urban Transit Company in the amount of $818.6 million, Transport Authority, $358 million, Firearm Licensing Authority, $150 million, the Jamaica Ultimate Tire Company Limited, $155.8 million, Jamaica Agricultural Commodities Regulatory Authority, 150 million. Jamaica Racing Commission, 150 million. And the Montego Bay Metro Limited for $11.4 million. Associated with the securitization of the Norman Manley International Airport, the central government also facilitated the redemption of debt for the Airports Authority of Jamaica in the amount of $2.4 billion. The fiscal policy paper, fiscal year 2024-25, reflects the actual outturn of the fiscal year 2023-24 operations, the outturn to August 2025, and in some cases just for the first quarter, and the revised forecast for fiscal year 2024-25 as indicated under the first supplementary estimates. The revised medium-term forecast is also provided, arising from the altered macroeconomic profile. The tables reflecting the new fiscal profiles outlined in the fiscal policy paper are attached to the report. So we have included the macroeconomic assumptions just indicating what was budgeted and what the current profile looks like, indicating the growth to the real growth rate as the biggest shift. We have
This document has an error, I believe, on page, the second page. Just go down to the bottom because I think what she's quoting is different from the figures that we're seeing here.
Sorry, I'm not hearing. Can you repeat?
Forgive me. I just wanted to, there are, on our paper that we got, so you have National Water Commission for 1,542 million. That's...
Yeah, I said 1.5 billion.
Million?
Yeah. No, it's 1.5 billion, but
yeah.
1,542
yeah,
million.
I just want, okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so the other tables give you the new profile for April through March compared to the original profile for the central government fiscal operations, as well as the new medium-term profile. And of course, the details are in the interim fiscal policy paper.
Members, floor is yours. Well, the first question I would ask you, Madam FS, I see here, I mean, the scan that I took last night of the budget itself, of the supplementary, and in your report, 11.8 billion directly related to the Hurricane Beryl. I know one agency, the National Works Agency, had said that their estimate was in the region of about $40 billion. Do you have an overall sum from of estimates of what the damage actually was coming out of Beryl?
No, we do not have, the Ministry of Finance does not have an overall estimate of the full damage. So what we are reflecting here is what the Cabinet has indicated. It is prepared to finance the recovery. So as is generally the case, the damage would be more than what we are proposing.
Just trying to assess what was the overall assessment in damage.
No, we do not have it at this point in time.
Is it? Sorry.
I don't really know.
I was just wondering if the question you asked is in relation to just the road network, or
just overall.
Agriculture, everything.
Agriculture, education, health, because if it is that 11 billion is being spent, 11.8 billion that has been approved by the Cabinet towards the Beryl recovery, it would really be good to know what the overall, to see what percentage of the assessment that is being spent at this point in time, so that we can get a better understanding of how the budgeting is being done and what is left out there. Because even for us who has to respond to our constituents when things are not done in itself, then it gives us a better understanding of what has been approved and how it will be somewhat spent.
Sure. So generally, the Planning Institute of Jamaica would be involved in compiling a full indication of what the overall damage is. Overall damage, of course, would include things that are not the responsibility of the government of Jamaica. So yes, we are providing some level of recovery at this point, and it will continue because you have recovery of reconstruction in some cases, which is a longer term activity dependent on what the damage is.
But I would assume that, I mean, the Ministry of Finance, I'm not sure how you get your data, but the Ministry of Finance would have some understanding of what the assessment is. It's not a fixed cost. You know, and knowing what it is, because as I said, the National Works Agency, in this, right here in this committee, so that their estimate was 40 billion, but yet still we're only seeing 3 billion from the REACH, plus another 26 million for road repairs from the National Works Agency.
All right, so
Chair. You understand, it's a small number compared to what the actual damage is.
Right, so Chair, even in the face of the NAA saying that they're assessing 40 billion, there is no way in 1 year
no, I expect
we could address
yes.
40 billion in damage.
I understand that. But, and you have the...
No, I didn't understand I didn't hear what you just said, FS.
No, I'm just saying that where you have damage that extensive, where you are estimating that you're looking at damage of $40 billion,
yeah.
even if we had $40 billion, you do not have the capacity to do that in 1 year.
Right.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
I had a follow-up question, FS, and thank you for the detailed report. Going along the lines of the net reduction in capital expenditure, so where you actually had to, you have a net reduction of about 12.1 billion on capital, and you're talking about any kinds of allocation under the contingency, what we would normally have for contingency capital allocation. And my question really goes towards the policy end. In other words, with what we're seeing now with climate change, 2 hurricanes, well, one has slammed into Florida, another one is hurtling towards it. If what we're seeing with Beryl not even hitting us directly, we're not finished the hurricane season, and what I hear you saying is that even if assessing the damage, we would not be able to even do that in 1 year. If this contingency allocation is cut, in your mind, even though you are not responsible for making those assessments and decisions, what mechanism does the Ministry of Finance therefore put in place to ensure that any kind of emergency, any kind of immediate, any kind of acts of God that is going to have catastrophic effects on the country, what kind of contingencies will the Ministry of Finance have if we're already seeing the net reductions on the capital side to help with the recurrent side? That is one of the things that concern me here.
So the contingency that's provided on the capital side of the budget is to facilitate new projects that at the point of budget preparation were not at the stage where they could have been properly included in the budget. So there are a number of things that we were expecting to get to the point to begin before the year ended. So that's what that was provided for. So to the extent that we have had a disaster, where we have had to address certain things, emergency things, things that need immediate recovery. This is a source from which we can utilize some resources. However, even outside of that, as you are aware, we do have a disaster risk financing program in place. We have several levels of insurance. Let's just call all of them insurance and not all insurance, from which we expect resources to flow dependent on what the disaster we're looking at is. So in this case, Hurricane Beryl led to the triggering of 2 of our insurance policies under the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, the tropical cyclone and the excess rainfall policies triggered. So we had flows from that which are helping in the revenues, additional revenues that we have indicated. We also have a contingent loan facility with the Inter-American Development Bank. That also triggered. It is, however, a loan, and we have opted at this point in time not to access it, but it did trigger. So if we had absolutely urgent things at a much higher level of expenditure, we could pull down on that. We have others. We have the...
Can you say how much it is that we got from these insurance?
Yes, from the CCRIF, we got a total of approximately Jamaican $4.6 billion. The IDB loan, I believe, was in the region of 200. 150 was triggered. 150 million.
How much?
150 million US.
150 million US. That's from the IDB.
From the IDB. Was triggered, but we haven't drawn it.
Oh, you have not drawn it?
No,
so,
that's the loan.
Yeah, yeah.
FS, what's the disbursement time usually for those, both in terms of the insurance and say if you were to go to the IDB for that?
All right, so the disbursement time is not long. I believe we got it within 5 to 7 days. I can't give you the exact date when I check it, but it doesn't take long.
The Jamaica Ultimate Tire Company Limited, I'm not sure, and this is one of the challenges that we face when we have the short notice, because we're not able to invite the ministry departments and agencies to somewhat delve further down into the budgeting and what it is being used for. But Jamaica, the JUTC is, I see here in the supplementary budget, it speaks about further expenses to do with the 100 buses. Is this to do with the purchase of another round of buses, or is it to deal with the buses that were currently, that we got delivery of currently?
On the recurrent side, it relates to the buses that came in. We do have provision on the capital for further buses.
And on the capital side?
There. Okay, there's some.
There's a 651 million.
Yeah, there's some additional
on the capital
costs.
side.
There's some additional costs related to the importation that is being captured on capital. That of the ones that just came in.
So, but it is not an, it has to do with the total amount that
Right.
was originally
Everything
quoted,
that's involved.
but now being put in the supplementary for.
Yeah.
And none of this has to do with any acquisition of any new buses.
Okay, the expected additional ones, it's included in the contingency,
Is it?
capital
Okay,
contingency.
Okay. Yeah. In your remarks, you spoke about the interest rates and exchange rate profiles utilizing during preparation of the budget that are also being adjusted in line with the developments to date. What are the difference between what the budget was prepared at, both interest and the exchange rate, and what is the adjustment that we're expecting to see?
All right, so as you are aware, sir, generally we do not provide the information on the interest rate or the exchange rate, as it can be market sensitive. We're just advising that where the year has gone to date has deviated from what it would have been projected at. And so it has impacted how much we need to
But wouldn't
provide.
that impact your interest payments also?
Yes, interest payments
Right,
are
so
impacted.
how has that impacted your interest payments to date?
Right, so the interest,
The adjustment in
right, so the interest payments overall are reflecting a $9.5 billion increase, both
and that's from
domestic and
exchange
external.
rate differential?
Both
Nine.
interest and exchange rate are contributing.
9.5
Yeah.
billion. The 2.4 billion having to do with the AAJ and the securitization, that 2.4 billion that was paid is for debt that the AAJ was
Right.
holding?
Right, it's a debt to the EIB, which belongs to the AAJ. In doing the securitization, a decision was taken to pay out that debt. It was guaranteed by the government of Jamaica.
What was the total intake from the securitization?
The securitization generated US $480 million.
And the original ask was?
When we went to market, we were expecting to get approximately 440. However, 440 is not what was reflected in the budget. How much was in the budget? 400. I think it's approximately 400 that was in the budget.
So, okay, and the take-up was 480?
480.
All right. The Spark program itself, how much of that amount, the equivalent of what, 700?
All right, so the Spark program in the original budget would have been listed at 20 billion Jamaican.
Still 20 billion for this financial
It was in the original budget, 20 billion.
20 billion, so that will be, the 20 billion from this take-up would go to the Spark.
It is unlikely that we will spend 20 billion during this fiscal year on the Spark.
On the Spark itself,
given
see
that
where we are in the program.
It hasn't commenced as yet.
But, all right, so most likely Spark will not take up the 20 billion. For this financial year.
For this year.
Yeah, go ahead.
There are two savings that I just want to ask you about. One is under Spark, which I see, which is a Rural Development Initiative 2. Is that one of the savings that you, for capital expenditure that we had cut for the 300 million there? And then there's one for the Western Hospital for Children, which I see also savings. So what I'm trying to get from you, FS, is when you went through, and I take the argument that things were not happening fast enough, so we had to mop up. And I say we because...
Okay, all right, so
just tell me a little bit about the headings that you found savings, because I'm seeing two so far. One is under the Rural Development Initiative, which I assume is roads.
All right, so for all intents
and then the health, under health.
For all intents and purposes, what we cut came from the contingency. You do have other adjustments in some of the programs, but you may have a reduction somewhere and an increase somewhere else. But in terms of the outright cut, we were really looking at the contingencies.
I ask purely for self-interest, because when I see savings under a rural development initiative, as you can imagine, as a rural MP,
right, so
I'm concerned. And when I see something cut for a Western Children's Hospital, when I say cut, the savings.
Right. So that would be directly related to their level of spend and what they're expecting to do by the end of the fiscal year.
No, I understand.
To do with the, and it was a revenue from the Norman Manley Airport that is now financing this securitization, this bond itself. The improvement of the Norman Manley International Airport is that borne by the concessionaire totally or jointly with the AAJ?
No, it's borne by the concessionaire. The concession required certain improvements, and the arrangement was that they would handle the improvements and the government would take a share of the revenue flows.
And see,
revenue flows.
I think it was 50-something%. All right, so seeing that the revenue, the share of the GOJ's or AAJ's revenue flows from the airport itself is now, for the next 12 years, will be now servicing this bond. How and what does the government of Jamaica see as the replacement for that inflow in revenue, both for the AAJ and the Ministry of Finance?
All right, so the AAJ would have been paying dividends to the government of Jamaica on an annual basis, which are primarily coming from that flow. The AAJ, based on our assessment, is able to operate with its remaining flows. To the extent that it needs assistance, then the central government will
But then the government will be getting a lower dividend from the AAJ, which is the point I am making.
That is correct.
Right, so you are expected to take a smaller dividend from the AAJ, but then that is revenue that you'll also be losing.
In the future, we have now gotten it this year.
Go again? I did not hear.
We got it this year, but it would therefore is not available in the future.
But it will not be available for the next 12 years. So I'm just saying, and that is approximately how much that you would normally get in dividend from the AAJ. Because it has to be replaced. It has to be replaced somewhere.
Right. I think we have been taking approximately 5 billion annually. So you could use the 5, or it would.
So if the AAJ is unable to meet its own expenses, then the central government will now have to step in. All right. What is it that the rest of that 480 million be used for?
Right. So it was being targeted at the Spark program and at the reduction of the debt, at assisting us to reduce the debt. So it is still being utilized in our debt amortization.
So, which is the bulk of the revenue?
Yeah.
From it will be used for. So, I mean, a thought came to me, Madam FS, and because, you know, it has been banded out that we are financing Spark program from our own resources. Yes, it is our own resources, but it is debt that is being taken on, even though not on the books of the government of Jamaica, but it is actually debt that is being taken on. We're doing more and more projects, the purchase of the buses, we say out of own revenue. And I guess it's a policy direction that the government itself has to take. But to be taking on this additional and taking the securitization of our debt, for me, is akin to the forward sale of bauxite itself. You don't have to answer that. It is akin to the forward sale of bauxite because you're basically wrapping up revenue from government entities for the next 12 years to pay those, but to pay down the debt in itself and not for infrastructural in the mainstay, because only 20 billion out of, and this Spark is a $40 billion program. Is it expected that the next phase of the Spark will be financed out of this, or we will have to seek additional revenue to finance the second phase of Spark?
All right, so if I may, sir, the concession that the Northern Manley International Airport has was set up in a particular way. There are other concessions, airport concessions, where the government takes the payment up front. So, for instance, that $480 million that we have just taken could have been an upfront payment from the concessionaire, which we would then have had.
But that's if agreed upon.
Time, and we would not have been getting the revenue flows as it is now set up, and that is very common across the world. What we had is not the very common one. We had an arrangement where we were pulling in a portion of the revenues over time. So what we have done is for a specific time period, pulled in an amount.
But you had to reduce your portion of the revenue flows from the concessionaire, because originally it was at 60%, and it was reduced to 53%.
Yeah, but that was in relation to the COVID and an adjustment that accommodated what happened during COVID, which is in the concession
I would say most in the
agreement.
industry found it a little bit off in the quantum that was negotiated, and knew that seeing that there was going to be heavy outflows for infrastructure adjustments, that it would have been very challenging even for the concessionaire itself. But suffice to say, it is what it is. Members, is there? Madam FS said it is very challenging when you don't have the ministries and departments and agencies to delve further into the numbers. So I guess we'll have to take it up in the House when we have standing finance, when members are able to delve more into. But suffice to say that it would be good if we had an overall number for what the damage right across the government for Beryl was, seeing that $11.8 billion. Because a question that needs to be answered, which was asked of the Prime Minister yesterday, and I'm sure the Minister of Finance, on how much is owed by the National Works Agency and the Ministry of Health to suppliers, because we have been getting complaints from contractors, the difficulty of finding contractors to do work right across the island, and them not wanting to touch government work because of monies that have been owed to them. Coming back, I know from the program, the 40 million per constituency program, coming back as far back as that 2 years ago. that contractors have not been paid. Coming out of the burial, contractors are complaining that they have not been paid also for the cleanup of burial. I see an amount in the budget in the recurrent side in dealing with some of the burial issues that have arisen in where NWA is concerned. But the number that has been put in the budget for the road damages that we have seen out there prior to burial and then burial, then you had the weeks of rain. The amount here, we don't expect it to fix the problem on a one-off, but it is still just inadequate of what is happening, what the need is out there. So hence why I'm asking the question for that amount. And it would give the country and us as parliamentarians a better understanding of what the amount is and what is the government is able to afford to spend at this time.
So further to that, Chairman, FS, the contractors generally, pre-burial and even the stop at pre-burial, what is the level of arrears outstanding by the NWA for work done?
All right, so I cannot speak to any exact level of arrears that's out there. What I can speak to is that we do a budget every year. The NWA and whoever else handles these works has a budget, and we have funded that budget to the level indicated. We have, on numerous occasions, provided additional amounts when we get requests for additional amounts, and we are able to accommodate. We have provided it. So the indications of contractors being owed, I think, has more to do with administrative matters rather than lack of financing.
You know, FS, the reason, Chairman, why I asked the question, because all of us as members of Parliament, we become very frustrated when you hear these allocations being made for the work to be done, and then nothing is happening. Like that 40 million, for example, is over 9 months it took for any work to start in the constituency. But here, you're told you get this allocation. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, when I speak to the NWA, they say they don't engage any contractors until they have the money. So you see how it becomes, no. That's not true. That's not true. No, I'm telling you.
He's just saying what he has been told. Yeah.
No.
But this is what he
I don't care what anybody wants. I'm telling you what they tell me.
But you know better than
no, I'm not talking about what I know. I'm talking about what I'm being told. Right? That's what they tell me. When they're going to start the work, MP, we cannot start until we have the money. What do I say? Nothing. And then that's why I asked the question, you know.
Go ahead. Speak.
Mr. Chairman,
Point of
the
order.
member made a statement about NWA, which is a broad statement. The member knows very well that what he's saying is not so. At this time, I am asking for the member to name the person within NWA. NWA is a state agency, and each position goes by a person, because we would like at Parliament now to get clarity to the statement that the member is making today. And the only way to get to that is if we can go directly to the person who gave the member such information.
I have a point about it.
Truth be told is that this doesn't have to be a contentious matter, because the member is only speaking about his knowledge of what he has been, of what he has told. He has been told. Go ahead, Member Jack. Member Jack. Member Hannah.
I want to concur with what the FS is saying. No, listen. I see what you're saying, and I see what Fitz is saying. FS, I've seen situations in my own constituency where it took over a year and a half. No, for procurement. And so what happens typically is you get an allocation, and those of us with larger constituencies that we believe there should be larger allocations. So you get an allocation. And typically, because of the lack of resources, human resources and technical resources, I am told within the NWA, sometimes it takes 9 months, sometimes it takes over a year. And what happens is when you don't see funds being used, then you take them back. It's not, and that's anecdotal. I'm not saying that that is what happens. But it takes an inordinately long amount of time. Every week, if the chairman is not lamenting his bridge, he's talking about the bridge that cannot get started or did not get started in his constituency. What we face as MPs, based on the NWA's administrative, logistical ineptitude, not by the people on the ground, because all of us as members of parliament have a good I can speak for me, have a good relationship with their regional manager, with their parish manager, and with their local manager. I actually have, over the years, a good relationship. But many times, those same people will say, MP Hannah, you can call Mr. So-and-so in head office. You can call Mr. So-and-so in head office. We're trying to get through. We can't get through. It is not the people on the ground. So I support what Fitz is saying, because while he might not say, the timelines that some of us are experiencing and explain it in what I am experiencing, all of us have problems with the NWA. And yes, we see the budget. So when we see the budget and we say, okay, good, we can go now and tell the people in road so-and-so, or in my road so-and-so, or in Fitz Road or Heroes Road, and we go out there and we talk to the people. And then for months, not now go on. And it is fundamentally on our head. Quite frankly, if you look in these books, the role of a member of parliament is not to actually be choosing a road or fixing roads. The representation that we make on behalf of the people is because the state agencies are not on the ground. So for us, I don't know if you as the Ministry of Finance can say to the office of the Prime Minister or sit down to really revisit the policy, because we have been saying this with the procurement. The NWA does not have the staff to do the amount of roads under the program that you have budgeted this year. Right now, the Sparks program is under the Constituency Development Program or Fund, and they're the ones who come to the constituency. So I don't know, maybe, did I make a sweeping generalization there that they don't have the member from St. James? Am I being too general with the NWA to say that they don't have the staff for the procurement to get all the roads out on time? Or are you going to do a point of order on that too? I don't think you can. So all I'm saying is, I know you've put the money in place, but all of us, 63 of us, are having problems getting the allocations made. And also, it's not that they tell the contractors that they don't have the money, As a matter of fact, some of us have good relationships, and some of the contractors live in the constituencies, and they see the potholes. So them say, all right, MP, we will start the work. Even when they have been allocated the contract, we will begin the work and wait. But sometimes it is all a year for simple works that they're waiting to get paid for. And so it has to be fixed.
Chairman. And FS, it underscore why it's important to have the agency here when we're talking to you. Because I'm telling you what my experience is. Not what I think, what my experience is. When I talk to NWA, and like member Anna, I have a good relationship with both the parish people and NWA and at the top. But the bottom line within all that relationship, when you get an allocation to fix roads, you go to the point of you identify the roads, they go out there and they do the costing, and there's a long gap between that exercise and the repair actually start. So when I hear you say that the budget is there, they must administer it, we get lost in between. Because money being allocated, but nothing is happening. And then on the other hand, we hear about the contractors now, not the NWA, don't want to move. The same contractors that the NWA engage don't want to move because they are owed so much more money from other work, and the bottom line is nothing get done. That's the reality that we live. I have people complaining like hell in my constituency about road to fix, and they say, but I have it on a program. It's a 3-card thing.
And that is why I support the view by our chairman in terms of his response as to the attendance here today. Because the issue, as I see it, is not really with the Ministry of Finance, but with the agency who are tasked to do the implementation. And therefore, as our chairman said, it would be good if we had those departments and agencies here. They would be able to answer these questions because that is really where the issue is. So I support your view, Mr. Chairman.
Chair, I'm kind of at a loss because I too experienced delays in NWA. And I can say I call the NWA maybe more than 3 times a week because I always try to get an update on the projects that I have in my constituency. Now, I can speak about a specific road in my constituency that was allocated funding more than a year and a half, maybe going 2 years, right? And I was told it's in procurement. A year and a half later, the road has still not started. But the reality is that on the ground, my constituents aren't going to blame the NWA that work is not being done. It is the Member of Parliament, right? And when they do demonstrations, it is not against the NWA. It is against the Member of Parliament. Now, I always try to ask the reason for these delays, and I'm told a number of things, including not having the staff, the human resources to carry out these procurement activities. I am not sure how the Ministry of Finance plays into this because if it is that the agency requires additional staff, I believe it is the Ministry of Finance that is tasked to approve additional staffing. So is it that the staff is not being asked for from the agency, or is it that approvals are not being given by the Ministry of Finance?
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to support my colleagues here in this call because how constituents grade their members of parliament, they link it to the condition of the road. Regardless of any other intervention, how you're able to lobby for other resources coming into the constituency, they assess members of parliament effectiveness based on the amount of road work and the quality of road work. And many times it is very difficult to explain to our constituents. We have been lobbying for you. However, Chair, I want to advance the point that I am not sure to what extent it is an NWA problem or if it is a Ministry of Finance problem, because there are many times when the CEO of NWA, right in this chamber, right in PAAC, has agonized about the procurement process, has agonized about the need for staff. So I am going to ask that the Ministry of Finance, because there seems to be some disconnect. NWA is saying one thing, Ministry of Finance is saying another thing, right? And so I think there needs to be greater clarification, greater levels of communication. Certainly, I want greater support for NWA because that will immediately and effectively impact how members of parliament are perceived by their constituents. I see the look on your face, Chair. I know that you are in agreement with me, but the lengthy procurement processes, we cannot continue to see that in this country, onerous procurement processes. And I will even say in my own right, some of them, I don't understand what is the mischief that you're trying to avoid, but I don't see how the prescription is helping to solve the fundamental problem. It shouldn't have to take so long. It shouldn't have to take 2-3 years. And I do believe that NWA, like most other agencies, fall under the whip of the Ministry of Finance. Thank you, Chair.
So, just to respond to some specific points. Procurement. To some extent, the length of time that procurement takes is related to how well you put your initial documents, your initial framework together. I'm aware of bridges, for instance, that have taken very long, which was not necessary. So just blaming the process that is in place, I cannot support, because it can be done and has been done by others with much shorter timelines. And we are, as previously indicated, in the process of making some adjustments. But even with adjustments, if the persons are not properly acquainted with what is required and do the things in line with what is required, then they might go through a process and get to the PPC, and it gets rejected because they have incorrectly executed something. But somebody else will flow through in no time at all. And I would say that the NWA has taken significantly longer than is necessary in a number of cases. Nevertheless, we are looking at procurement, and some adjustments should be coming shortly.
Well, go ahead, Madam. Go ahead.
On the staffing, to the best of my knowledge, the existing profile for the NWA is not full, but I'm also not aware that the Ministry of Finance has been provided with a request to adjust the structure, because we have had those requests from others and we have responded. So again, the NWA needs to look at its operation.
Yes, I think the reason why we have the procurement conditions is to help us to exercise control in terms of expenses and to avoid additional cost to the taxpayer. I think that is the primary reason why we have this procurement procedure. But I really believe that it is not achieving the desired goal. So I think we have to relook at how we set the standards in terms of our procurement policy. Because, listen to MP member Hamilton, there's a road that was to be fixed 2 years ago, and to date it has not been fixed. When you look at the cost, when that road was, the bill of quantity was prepared for that road, and you look at the cost 2 years ago, and the cost now, there's nothing in procurement that is...
And they're still going to use the cost of 2 years ago.
Right, right. And you get half of the road fixed, and maybe you were trying to, because of the procurement procedure was put in place to save $1 million, and you lose 10. It's a waste of time. A total waste of time. And I really believe we have to look at how these, at the standards, because when I check it out, when you look at the issue of variation that comes every year on projects, and see how much that costs the country because of these issues, we really have to take a deeper look as to how we really set these parameters in terms of procurement. Variation alone. And then it come out as cost overrun. It's no cost overrun. It's not overrun because you identify a project 2020 and the project not until 2024. You must have variation.
Part of the reason for that is...
So we have to tighten up on that.
Part of the reason for that is the procurement issue too. Because when it is time for them to do the work now, to go back over the procurement for the same project,
exactly.
It's going to take another length of time.
Exactly.
So use that. So use the old rate, and then ask for variation at the back end,
I think we
which
need
is
to
not
look
serving
at,
anyone well.
Let's have a look at how much variation costs we have, and look at what we were trying to save in the initial answer.
All right. Thank you, member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on my colleagues. Mr. Chairman, every entity is as good as a brand that they put out. Marketing is key to any brand. And MPs, politicians are no different. We are an entity, we have a brand, and we have to market. When it is announced here that you're getting a road, the first thing you have to do is go out there and meet with your people, your constituents. And so you give them that information. They're looking forward to see something happening. The procurement, and I'm concurring with the argument about procurement, but from this meeting, we must formulate something to say, how are we going to treat the situation of this long lapse in time where procurement is concerned? I don't know if they use it for a reason to make it happen in that instance. I don't want to accuse anyone or any entity, but we as parliamentarians need to address the situation, because you know who it hurts more than anybody else?
People.
Us.
And the people.
And yes, because the constituents are going to hold it against us. As my colleague rightly said, there are MPs who are in a position to lose a term because of the fact that they did not hold to the argument that they put out there. Say that that particular road is going to be fixed. Mm-hmm. And so...
Continue for me, please, member. Continue.
You know, some...
Member, stay the course. Stay the course.
It's not easy.
No, I didn't get bored. All I did was to play a stop ball and just kill it at the feet and wait on the bowler to pick it up. You understand, Mr. Chairman? But in reality, Mr. Chairman, is we talk about it here, but let us not just talk about it. Let us do something about it. Because if it don't happen now, it is going to happen then.
All right. So just to, for members, one of the meetings that we have scheduled is with the Ministry of Finance and Public Service, looking at the procurement apparatus of the government. So the next meeting will be finishing up the climate change, and then the following meeting after that, it would be looking at. And it's coming out of one of the meetings that we had with the Ministry of Finance here, and the FS speaking about the really building capacity and the lack of capacity in some MDAs in dealing with the matter of procurement, which slows the process down. So we want to get a better understanding. But there's a bigger issue, and it affects all of us as members in here and the entity, the National Works Agency. Because, and Madam FS, I've been saying it, I said it to the Prime Minister in here yesterday, there has to be a broader developmental plan on how it is we're going to finance road construction and maintenance. There's no way that we're going to be able to finance it to the rate or the stage that we need to out of the central budget. As we are now with $20 billion over 2 years, $40 billion per year, $20 billion per year over 2 years to finance the spark. We won't be able to probably do that every year for the next 10 or 15 years. So there has to be another way in how we do it. I know the government is not for dedicated funds, but everywhere else across the world that has better road maintenance program, look at a road maintenance fund. And I've proposed that it should be taken out of the hands of the political directorate. It may be unpopular, policy, but I believe that it should be, so that it can be spent for what it is, since we have a history of mismanaging those funds. But when you look at the National Works Agency now, they might have an ask for 10 billion, but they only get 3 billion. So we know that there's not enough funding at any one point. Hence why the problems that we are facing whenever there are, because then you have $3 billion that was approved in the budget, but yet Hurricane Beryl comes, and they have to now spend out that $3 billion, then you only give them back probably $2 or $1 billion, $600 million to NWA. I'm just saying, to NWA for road maintenance, outside of the $3 billion for REACH, right? I'm just saying, so things happen. But $3 billion is just not enough, or $4 billion a year is just not enough for road maintenance, on top of what is not being spent or cannot be spent by the municipal councils, because it's just not there. So that's why I said there has to be a conversation of a wider developmental plan on how it is we're going to maintain our roads. But history will teach us that how we've been doing it is not working. And there has to be a different way in how we're going to deal with it. And so, but that is for the policymakers in how we deal with it. No, first.
Because everybody here, and no, hang on, I'm trying to help you, brother. You're not.
Go ahead, member.
I don't understand you. But I'm saying everybody here except Fitz
He
has
said
your
that
rural constituency.
you yield to her.
Everybody here except Fitz has a rural. Okay, well, I can't help you then. Yeah. Everybody except Heroy and Fitz has a rural constituency. And FS, we have enough serious problem. The roads are breaking away. I hear what you say in terms of the technical incapacity of some of the documents that you're seeing coming before you, which should not happen. And so I don't know if behind the scenes, but nobody, the people we represent don't care about that. They don't. And so we are at risk of, I had a situation where I finally, through the parish council, was getting a road fixed about a month ago. The young man was 32, carrying the second load of marl. The road broke because of how, and he died. The truck with the marl plunged into the gully and crushed him. He was 32 years old, and somebody who does work for us. What is happening with the rain the existing road conditions in some of our areas, for roads that are on the programs to be fixed, are getting into a more deplorable condition. And people in Kingston and St. Andrew and Portmore and urban St. James are not feeling it. People up in Guys Hill, Blackstone Edge, people out in Martha Bray, people out in Mile Gully, people out in Junction. Well, Junction kind of good. Nothing wrong with Junction, but it's a serious issue. And they are my constituency, and I would dare say the member from North Trelawney, and perhaps East Rural St. Andrew are the largest constituencies geographically in this country, with the most, right. And we're having problems. So if you can even guide, you know, like when I don't want to say it, but if we can find a way to fast track the procurement on some of these roads, because you're not feeling it, but we're feeling the dangers of the road accidents and people dying on the roads, like in my case, for example.
I've been here now since September 2020 and participating in the PAAC, and I've been told on numerous occasions about the amendment to the procurement rules, but we have not seen it. I mean, it's almost a term, and I have not seen any changes being made. We keep hearing about it, but nothing is being done. And I think at some point, there needs to be action.
Even for the floor, that figure of
the thresholds.
The thresholds.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
the quantum.
Yes.
And so, so hence why, Madam FS, as a committee, I mean, we have seen it, and you can say that other agencies master it or not, but when entities such as the NWA and other entities that we have to deal with, when it takes months, sometimes years to get something through, then if it is the agencies or the departments in there just don't have the capacity, then what are we doing?
That's the
because
point.
It can't continue like this.
And all of these
and
agencies
it affects government itself.
Must have performance management reviews.
Yes.
So I'm not understanding if these agencies are passing these reviews, on what basis are they passing them? But Chair, I do appreciate the need for the procurement process.
It does.
I'm just saying in the current state, it is anti-development.
Last one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur with most of what has been said.
Except mine.
No, calm down.
Go ahead.
But one thing I want to differ, where you made the comment that we need to find a way to take it out of the hands, and I'm just quoting you, take it out of the hands of the political directorate. And I beg not to, because first of all, we don't want John Public to think at this moment from this meeting, by what virtue of what you have said, that we are the one that do it, we the politicians, the political directorate, are the ones that are doing it, because we are not.
No.
We are not.
Understood.
We are not. And also, there has to be an oversight, and all we do, is provide oversight to all that is happening. It is for that reason that we can sit here this morning and keep saying to the FS that we need to make sure that the procurement situation is dealt with in a more speedy way, so that things can seem as if it is flowing. So that is the correction that I want to make.
Noted. Madam FS, any closing statements? I did not touch it at all, sir. You did. Go ahead.
Also, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Chairman.
Oh, sorry,
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Don't worry yourself. I remember clearly yesterday the Prime Minister making a statement to you in particular that the Spark program is the start of where we want to go with maintenance. I hope that all the roads that are coming under the Spark program, by virtue of what he had mentioned, that must be in place when the road is to be fixed, the curb walls, the retaining walls, the V-drains, all of that, will be in place out of this program. That 5 years' time, we won't have to be going back to these same roads to fix again. We will be moving on to other roads. So it is a start of a program which we didn't have over 50 years.
Okay, member. Yes, Madam FS. Any?
Nothing further.
All right, members. Members, let me thank again the members who made it out at the last minute. As in my opening statement, I will be speaking to the leader of government business on the issue of the last minute arrangement of meetings like this, because it would have been better well spent if we had the MDAs here, that we can delve further in the matters in the supplementary budget. And also let me thank Ms. Morrison and her team from the Ministry of Finance in making it possible for this meeting to be had, because we couldn't have done it without you. And the report will be then tabled in the House at the next sitting, leaving way for the Minister to pass his supplementary budget. Members, just finally, is there any other business? If not, just as an update, we had set the date of the 15th, next week, Tuesday, to be exact, to have the next sitting of the PAAC. We had to give up that date for the Integrity Commission Oversight Committee to have a meeting. And so we will communicate the next date of the meeting for the PAAC. With that said, meeting adjourned.
Motorists, as Minister of Justice, I appeal to you, obey the road code, pay your ticket on time, and only go to court if the ticket is being contested. Close to 80% of matters coming to the parish courts are for traffic breaches. Let's work together to make our roads safe and ease the burden on our courts.
Na, 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 na. We want a peace for Jamaica. Yeah, yeah. We have to be our brother's keeper. Yeah, yeah. Jamaica live good, yeah. I make we enjoy life. Want we feel safe at night. Jamaica live good. I better you and I. No say we future bright. Jamaica live good. Come together as one. I make the violence.